The secret to be faster boxing is relax your muscle.
Hey, what's up everybody? Shane here. Today I want to share with you 3 form tips that I learned from boxing coaches over the years that completely helped with my style, and I hope that it does for you too. So they are as follows. Number 1, sitting on the stool. Number 2, don't admire your work. Number 3, sync up the hands and the feet. So let's take a look at the first one. All right, so number 1, sitting in the stool. How many of us have sat in a stool before? Perfect. Or a chair. That's even better. That's the concept that I want you to think about when you're in your boxing stance. Or, as my friend Dima Gerasimov talks about, he says, imagine that you have a kettlebell hanging from your taint. If you don't know what a kettlebell is, this is a kettlebell. And if you don't know what a taint is, I'll just say it taint your balls and it taint your ass. All right, so what we're gonna do is imagine that we are about to sit down in a stool, in a chair, and I first learned that I was too heavy on my front leg, actually from kickboxing, because I wasn't checking enough of those low kicks, and I was getting my lead leg beaten apart. So what I started to do was pull that weight back, and I imagined that I was pulling a stool in, and I was sitting down on the stool. And this helps not only take weight off the front leg so that I can block those kicks, but it also pulls the head, my head, or their target away from them, so that in boxing, I'm not getting hit as much, right? So as an aggressive style, I would be very heavy on the front leg, marching forward, throwing shots, but I was also getting countered a lot. And I found that I wasn't landing a lot of my crosses, my rear hand cross, because I was leaning into the shot where I had to bring my rear foot with me. So that's something that you need to start to focus on. I think what happens is when we look down, we see both of our hands and we see our lead leg, and we forget about this back leg and it gets lazy. So what you need to do is imagine that you're sitting in the stool and pull some of that weight onto the back leg. Again, defensively, I'm gonna take the target away from them. I'm giving myself more room, more space. And then I can use my shields, my arms to block, and now I step with my punches to make sure that I'm getting close enough to hit them. A thing that I think about when doing this is having soft legs, and this is a cue that I heard from Kru Bob Perez. So when you have soft legs, it feels really nice because you sort of have what I call loose tension. Or you don't waste any of your energy and you're not tensing up the muscles. And what happens is you're keeping the tension in the balls of the feet and in the calves. All right, and this is going to save your energy and it's going to make you a little bit quicker with your feet and where they need to go. It's going to flow with your movement a little bit better. Additionally, I think about that in my hands as well. So I try to keep the tension in my thumb and in my forearms, but I keep everything else loose in the arm. I keep my shoulders loose and relaxed, my traps, so that I can whip my punches very quickly, but still have a heavy hand, a heavy punch. This is something that I learned and was stressed a lot by Coach Drian Francisco at Evolve MMA in Singapore. And I do that by, again, carrying the tension in my forearm and in my thumb, actually. So I press in with the thumb so that when I punch, I have heavy impact on my shot. So think about that, having the tension, or what I call loose tension, in the hands and in the feet and in the calves, but everything else is loose and relaxed, okay? So we're here. Sitting in that stool, carrying loose tension. Let's move on to the next one. Form tip number 2 is don't admire your work. And this comes down to, especially after landing a punch or evading or dodging or slipping a punch. Now, I learned this from Sheriff Joe Jesus, my first boxing coach, who taught to move your head in the shape of the letter U, but even better than that, move your head in the shape of the letter J and keep your head moving. If you slip a punch, if you dodge a punch, don't freeze and admire your work, because your opponent's going to continue punching and you're going to get caught. Wait until after you've won the fight to admire your work. You have to keep your head continuously moving until you're either out of range or at an angle at which your opponent can't hit you. But let me demonstrate what that means. Let's say I throw a combination, I'm stepping in on my opponent with a hook cross. Now I'm going to sit and I'm going to move my head in not a U shape because I don't want to come up to the top. I want to stay low. All right, I want to take the target away from them. I want to be underneath of their punches, and I'm here. Now from here, I can continue to roll underneath in that J shape, staying at the bottom of the J. All right, kind of looks like that Mike Tyson form. And I can start to move my feet to create angles too. So when I roll my head to the left, I can also step out to the left. Or if I finish with the right hand and I'm rolling my head to the right, I can now step to the right. I'm creating this angle. Now, if I know that I'm in a safe position and my opponent can't hit me without adjusting first, then I can come to the top of the J and start punching again. So a huge point that definitely helped me defensively was don't admire your work. Don't dodge a punch and be like, whoa, I dodged the punch. because you know there's going to be a follow-up shot after that and you're going to get smacked. All right, don't land a punch and be like, ooh, I landed a punch, cool. You got to be following up with your next couple of shots after that. So the form tip is follow that J-shaped formation when you're rolling or evading under punches, and continue to move, because a moving target is much harder to hit than something that's still. Syncing up the hands and the feet is something that helped me tremendously with my offense, punching while moving, but it also helped with my defense. I learned this from Coach Kevin Carmody while training out in Philadelphia, and this is something that completely changed my style up. I was a very aggressive fighter where I would put the pressure forward, rolling underneath punches, trying to get on the inside. But training with Coach Kevin, I started to fight on the outside, and I started catching punches a little bit more, moving my feet and trusting the range on my long punches like my jabs and my crosses. So syncing up the hands and the feet, the way that he teaches it and I continue to teach to this day, is imagine that you have a string around the same side wrist to the same side ankle, okay? And when you throw that punch, I want that foot to hit the ground, and we're gonna advance forward as we do it. So we're only gonna move about 2 or 3 inches when I do this. Bang. When the foot hits the ground, hand hits the target. I'm gonna do the same thing with my back leg, all right? So I go here. When I do this, I wanna make sure that I am moving the same distance with each foot. I don't wanna get jammed up and too narrow, and I don't wanna be lazy with this rear leg and be like this. So if I step 2 inches with the front leg, I step 2 inches with the back leg, the pivot happens midair, the ball of the foot lands on the ground when the punch hits the target. Then I reset and I pull that weight into the back, I sit back down on my stool. Okay, this is something now that defensively this works too, because now I can move in different directions. I can move out to the side as I do this. I can move backwards as I do this and still be throwing shots. So syncing up the hands and the feet is something that really helped me move and evade, but also set up different strategies and attacks. And we have a follow-up video coming out next week, so make sure you subscribe now, hit that alert button, because we're gonna talk about more tactics, strategies that you can do to instantly improve your game, similar to what we're talking about right here. Syncing up the hands and the feet is something that you have to start doing early and train it often. Still, my warm-up, every single time that I work out or train my combat skills, I'll go in a line with my jab, I cross, my jab, I cross, and I'll just find this rhythm to make sure that I'm syncing up the hands and the feet, going forward, going backwards. Doesn't always have to be the same side. We can also switch it up to right hand, left foot, and it can be a cross to a hook, cross to an uppercut. I can go forwards and I can go backward. All right, so give that one a try. Start to sync up the hands and the feet, and I promise your form will improve. All right, everybody, there you have it. I hope that these tips helped you as much as they helped me. If they did, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn the alerts on so you can get the fight tips before your opponent does. As mentioned, we are going to be doing a follow-up video on this to talk more strategies. So if you are getting into sparring and competition, that will be great and help you out with that. Until next time, I'm Shane with Fight Tips for the Underdogs.